In 1994, a maintenance engineer named Lawrence Beckett was dispatched to inspect the electrical systems of the Margaret Plaza Hotel in Chicago. It was a 17-story building, old, regal, and once home to politicians, performers, and even esoteric philosophers of the early 20th century. But the most peculiar thing about the Margrave wasn't its guests. It was the 13th floor that was never acknowledged, or more precisely built, but never named. The elevators jumped from floor 12 to 14. The staircase curled from 12 upward through a windowless, unnumbered void before depositing visitors at 14. In the night in between twice, employees whispered about the hallway of shadows. Beckett had heard the rumors. Footsteps that didn't match his own. A door that glowed from within, that bore no number. Guess no one remembered checking in, but everyone recalled serving. That night, while checking the fuse boxes on floor 12, the lights flickered out. Nothing was technically broken, except for the power on the floor that didn't officially exist. Beckett grabbed a flashlight and took the stairs. Where there had once been a blank wall, there was now a door. Dark wood, brass handle, facing to the touch. And instead of a number, it bore a symbol. Not a letter, not a number. Marked like an eye that never closes. He turned the handle. Inside was a hallway longer than any floor should allow. Flickering bulbs hung low from the ceiling, drooping like they were being pulled downward by something unseen. At each bend stood a mirror, stained, faded but not broken. None reflected him. Instead, each mirror showed another man, dressed in identical overalls, holding a flashlight. But this man had no eyes, just smooth pale skin stretched across the sockets. Beckett spun around. The door behind him was gone. He was gone for 12 days. On the 13th day, Beckett was found lying in the break room of a lobby. No one had seen him enter. No one remembered him missing. But his clothes were dusty, his fingernails were worn down. And in his breast pocket was a plastic hotel keycard labeled. Security footage showed him taking the elevator up and down every single night. But the elevator doors never opened. He never returned to the Margrave. The Margrave Plaza was quietly sold 3 months later. No ceremony, no press. The new owners gutted the 13th floor entirely, or tried to. Construction crews reported strange power surges. Floor plans changed on their own. Twice, workers claimed they ended up 1 floor too low, even when climbing stairs. In April 1995, one of the electricians, Darren Newell, took a Polaroid of the hallway near the old shaft. At first glance, the photo seemed normal dimly, wires dangling from the ceiling. But behind him, in the reflection of a discarded mirror, was a face, his own, but smiling. He swore he hadn't smiled in months. 2 weeks later, Darren disappeared from the site. A handwritten resignation was found in his locker. Though the handwriting didn't match his truck was still in the parking lot, keys untouched. Photo, smile had disappeared from the print. Visiting architectural historian named Valentina Kessler was brought in to examine the original blueprints of the Margrave. She confirmed what no one wanted to hear. The 13th floor had been sealed in, but it was there from the beginning. The floor's layout was asymmetrical, a non-Euclidean law, geometrically impossible. One hallway led directly back into itself. A stairwell exited 3 meters east of where it began. And in the center of it all, marked in red pencil, was a room with no door. No measurements. Only a note. Do not enter. It's await. Valentina returned to her hotel room that night, shaken. The next morning she was gone. Her passport, bags, and notepad remained. On the wall of her room was a mirror, smeared with a message written in fog, still moist. You were never looking. We were. By the end of 1996, the Margrave Plaza had become a vacuum of reality. Not abandoned, simply overlooked, so stood on the corner of Fest and Clarion, its light sometimes flickering through the night. But no one remembered going inside. No one booked rooms. No delivery truck stopped there. It became a fixture of shadow, visible, but forgotten. A freelance photojournalist named Amira Chen was the first to break the veil. Amira was chasing urban legends, looking for sense spaces, locations where time or memory lost consistency. The Margrave was a natural candidate. Her grandmother, now living with early dementia, would sometimes ask, Do they still sing in the red ballroom? There was no ballroom listed in any registry. A mirror snuck in one night with a recorder, a 35mm camera, and a body cam. The footage recovered from her equipment found days later in a pawn shop 5 miles away revealed exactly 26 minutes and 17 seconds before the signal fractured in the static. What was visible in that window shocked calculations. Mirror ascended the stairwell. Floor 12 was intact, floor 14 was disused. But between them, she paused and whispered, "There's another floor here. I hear humming." When she pressed her palm to the wallpapered wall, her hand touched through. She emerged into a narrow corridor, bathed in reddish light. Wallpaper bloomed with patterns that shimmered, not painted, but alive, shifting like fish beneath ice. And along the walls rows of mirrors, each one side revolved, each one reflecting a different version of herself. In one, her hair was white. In another, her eyes were gouged out. In a third, she stood with her back turned, but her reflection watched her. Then the hallway spoke, not aloud, but inside her ears, like her own thought reloaded. "You've been seen. Now you'll see." Her breathing accelerated. In the final frames of the footage, she turned to flee, but the floor had folded back upon itself. She ran in a straight line, but ended up right where she started. Her reflection was missing from every mirror. Then came the last still image. A mirror, frozen in place. Eyes wide, not in terror, but in recognition. The next day, a mirror appeared in her grandmother's nursing home room. No one brought it in. No one remembered buying it. But each morning, the old woman would whisper to it and smile. "You came home." The mirror's body was never found. But every year, on the anniversary of that night, the Margrave's windows reflect someone standing in the 13th floor corridor. Only one camera catches it, but the footage never saves. The Margrave Plaza was demolished in 2003. At least that's what the city records say. But the demolition crew's 3 separate contractors never filed the final payment invoices. Their trucks were allowed entering the site, but not leaving. For 2 years after, Clarion Street was fenced off. Locals called it the block you don't cross. The city council eventually paved over it, turning the lot into a flat expanse of cracked asphalt, painted with lines for a temporary parking area. And yet at certain hours, drivers swore their GPS still marked tall rectangular structure. Some said it showed 13 floors exactly. Others claimed it showed 14. In 2011, a night security guard named Fager Hill was patrolling the lot when his radio picked up an old chimney ballroom waltz. He followed the sound to the center of the pavement. It was warm underfoot, like something alive. He looked up. Inside, the Margrave Plaza, whole and lit, standing right where the empty lot should be. The glass doors were open. Inside, dozens of people stood perfectly still in the lobby. Men in outdated tuxedos, women in evening gowns, a bellhop in a crimson uniform, a child holding a silver balloon. Their eyes followed him in unison, but none moved. At the far end, behind the checking desk, a wall of mirrors caught the scene. But if Victor noticed something wrong, there was no reflection of him. One of the guests stepped forward. A tall man with a waxy complexion and a voice like old paper folding. "Easier if you choose to stay." Victor dropped his flashlight and ran for the door. But with each stride, the lobby stretched longer. Music grew louder. Mirrors began to ripple, as if inviting him in. When the doors finally hit his hands, he burst back into the cold night air alone in the empty lot. The Margrave was gone. His radio was silent, but when he looked down, the pavement beneath him was still warm. 3 weeks later, a mirror appeared in his apartment. Oval, gold frame, faintly fog. On its glass edge, so shallow you could mistake it for a scratch, was a message. "You saw us. You can't unsee." Victor's friends say he moved out of city, changed his number, and never spoke that night again. But in certain photographs, reflections in windows, passing subway cars, chrome elevators, you can see him, standing among the others, watching, waiting, and smiling.